You saw the title and thumbnail of this video. I want to help you out, okay? You ever make a TTRPG character and then it comes time to roleplay them and you're really not sure where to start? Or better yet, do you always try and make different TTRPG characters and they always end up feeling kind of the same or kind of just like you with like a different hat on? Are you a dungeon master who feels like you're struggling to come up with interesting choices for your NPCs to make in your games? If you answered yes to any of that, or you just think I'm handsome, keep watching this video right now. For those of you new around here, how's it going? I'm DM Denver. I wear the elf hat, and I'm here to hopefully make your tabletop dice rolling game just it's a tiny bit better. I don't promise much, but I hope when you're done watching, you feel like it wasn't a waste of time. If you're eating, enjoy whatever it is you're snacking on. I am honored to be that YouTuber for you. In addition to all that, I'm also a philosophy student. Whether you realize it or not, when you're designing a TTRPG character, you're designing a person, not a real person. That's a different process. You're designing a fictional character. I think the best example for this that I can give is a paladin character, right? And let's present two beliefs that seem pretty paladin core, pretty paladin coded. First one, all goblins are bad. Second one, anyone can be redeemed. Now, on the surface, these seem like straight up contradictions. How can it be that all of one sort of clan of creature is bad and anyone can be redeemed? If you're a player, you might accidentally create a character that holds both of these beliefs based off their backstory. And I think there's a couple different things we could do about it. The first solution I would present to you is drop one, right? Maybe you're not looking for a contradiction there, and it seems easiest to just focus on one or the other. If you focus on the all goblins are bad part, you probably are going to have a character that's way more focused on ridding the world of evil, smiting creatures, protecting cities, that kind of stuff. If you focus more on the anyone can be redeemed kind of idea, you might have a paladin who's a little more nurturing, caring, and only resorts to violence as a last resort. Right there. I just created two different paladins with just one kind of basic, we'll say, tenet, right? You can also make one paladin that holds two of these thoughts at the same time. Now, there's a couple different ways that you're going to want to juggle that. Everyone can be redeemed. All goblins are bad. How can we make that not a direct contradiction? Maybe we can extend the redemption aspect to be all people can be redeemed, or all persons can be redeemed. Maybe you have a sort of paladin that really does view goblins as mindless monster creatures that just want to, steal babies and eat them and rob people walking on the roads and stuff like that. And if that's what your paladin thinks, I think those two beliefs are totally fine. Just make sure that when your paladin's reacting to a bandit, say, they give the extra consideration that they would not give a goblin. That's where I think a lot of the inconsistency comes in when players try to roleplay. They write a bunch of stuff down and then they're just going to smite the bandit and they're just going to smite the goblin, and at that point they might be telling me that their character values the redemption of people, but they're really only focusing on, tearing down the evil, which just creates a different character than they're pitching to me. That's why I think it's useful for you as the player to keep it in mind. I think it's also totally fair for you as a player to make a character that has some contradictions. In that way, you're setting your character up for a lot of growth. There can be a time later on in the campaign where they're presented with a situation where these two seemingly, and in this instance directly competing notions come to a head and they have to make a choice.
A character defining choice.
It is through action that you tell me as a player what your character is all about. You can write a bunch of stuff in your backstory and send a bunch of memes that you think are applicable to your character, but the only screen time I get with them is when we're playing at the table, and if I'm not seeing it, I'm not feeling it, and I have a hard time agreeing with it. My main advice from this for you as a player, I think it's a useful mental exercise to place your character in semi-compromising positions when you're making them, and deciding early on how they would respond. Here's a couple for your consideration. A group of vulnerable people need your character's help, but they can't pay you. Do you help them? Your party saves an incredibly poor area from goblins in the nearby forest, the people of the town collect what little things of value that they have to give to your party. Do you accept? Your character can save one of two towns of equal size. The one they grew up in, or the one that they're currently in. Your character has the opportunity to sink a ship that's in a harbor. And the ship is run by orcs and goblins that are pirates, and on board they have two innocent human prisoners. Do they sink the ship? These are tough things to consider, and they're the sort of things that I think when you consider them when you're making your character, it's going to be a lot easier to roleplay at the table. How's it going? So pretty much while I was editing the video over there, I realized that I didn't include like the tied together section for the video. Basically, if you're being conscientious of your character having intentional contradictions or not, and you want them to be consistent, and you do that moral dilemma exercise that I was just talking about, you can infer other things about your characters based off of how you're orienting those two things. If I want a consistent character and I do that moral dilemma exercise and I get a character that would not take the money from the poor area, right, that like wants to pay them, I could then infer that that character also probably has like pretty tranquil attitude, probably pretty inwardly focused. You see what I'm saying? I can kind of guess at other things that would also be true about that character. Inversely, if I want a character that has some contradictions, maybe I have a character that professes that belief of like immaterialism, rejecting wealth, that kind of thing, but then still takes the money. And that's an interesting thing to explore. So yeah, that's my advice. Okay, bye. And that's kind of all I have for you on this one. A little bit of a shorter video, just really advocating for you guys to keep your worldviews in mind when you're making your characters. Psychology has a lot to say about this stuff too. It's why right now I'm going to plug that you fill out 2 tests. You can fill them out as yourself first and just answer them to get a baseline, learn something interesting about you, and then you can answer the questions as the characters that you're making to see what differs between you and your character. It can give you more insight on how to roleplay. The first one is kind of a general worldview test from Developmental Politics, link in the description. The other one is the pretty popular 16 personalities test. I'm also a big fan of it because at the end it gives a list of comparable fictional and living people that you can kind of emulate and model your character's personality off of. Help you roleplay more. Hopefully some of the stuff I brought up in this video helps you make a more consistent character and have an easier time role-playing at the table. If you like what I do on this channel, link to the coffee account is in the description. Every little bit helps. Throw some gold at your virtual dungeon master. But for those of you new around here, at the end of each one of my videos, I respond to a question I asked at the end of my previous video. So I'm going to do that now. Stick around if you want to hang out. The question I asked at the end of my last video was, what's your favorite Baldur's Gate 3 combat that you played in? The response I'm going to go with comes from Janice TL. Janice said they haven't gotten out of Act 1 yet. Definitely felt that. I just finished my first playthrough, like Act 1 to Act 3, start to finish, like it was like a week ago. In Act 1, Janice TL says they really like the Goblin Keep. And I mean, I have to agree. I talked about it in my most recent video, but that was the combat that really kickstarted my thinking for how we can incorporate some of the lessons from Baldur's Gate 3 into our tabletops. So definitely a really good environment. Lots of different NPCs to interact with. It's a really cool setup on how you get there too. Like, for me as a dungeon master, the challenge of having a party surrounded by goblins, and if they make the wrong choice, that could turn really hostile really quick, but still keeping it manageable, where they could walk away successful if they're especially cunning. That's a really, really fine line, and I think the game handles it pretty well. I've done the Goblin Keep a few times now, and it's always been the sort of thing where I have to sit up in my chair and really, really, really think about it, but it usually has ended up alright. So definitely a really well-made combat. Thanks for the comment, Janice. Hope you're doing well. My question for the end of this video is about your character. One of the characters you've made in your game recently, or something you've been kind of cooking up, waiting for the next opportunity to use. What is that character's worldview? Do some Googling. Some terms that I would recommend you keep in mind are like utilitarian, relativist. Are they generally optimistic? Generally pessimistic? Are they relativistic? Do they think that there's an objective set of rules that everyone's following? Do they think everything is a case-by-case kind of basis? Do they really consider this kind of stuff? I think there's some pretty serious implications with what I'm talking about right now and alignment. So maybe that'll be a video coming up. Let me know in the comments if you think that's interesting. But anyway, to end this video, like in true fashion, we're going to do a stealth check. Fans of the DM Denver experience know I'm rolling at a plus, I think, what did I say? +3 now. Did I up my dexterity? I think whatever, it's a +3, screw you. Rule 0, baby. Yoink. Look at that. Look at that bad boy. That's what we're going for. And we got a 12. Plus 3, 15. That's pretty good.